So unemployment figures are due today, and this is off growth numbers yesterday, which weren't good. So how do these unemployment figures, what are they expected to look like?
Yeah, morning, Peter, and good to see you. It'll be probably a tale of two stories, and the reason I say that is the figures we get today are actually for July. So it was more a combination of there will be some small falls in Victoria, but probably gains in places like South Australia, Western Australia, and to even some extent New South Wales, which is an interesting thing to say. What people are now forecasting and looking at is what happens in August, and August will probably be a very dramatic decline. There are some people expecting to see about 40, maybe as much as 50,000 jobs lost in August, and the unemployment rate now has been forecast to decline by the end of October to 7.8%. To put that in perspective, we're currently at 5.1. So that is a very, very big, sharp reversal to what we have seen. And as you said, yesterday, the numbers that we were looking at were the wage price index numbers, and they were the lowest level of wage price growth we've seen since the GFC. And that's despite the fact of how strong employment has been through January through to June this year. We didn't get any wage increase, and that obviously, as we know, because we are still seeing that uncertainty, that pressure about how the country is going to operate over the next sort of probably 18 months. Businesses are confident. They're telling us that when we get things under control, but it hasn't actually sort of petered through into what we would expect, which is actually seeing wages move.
Well, that's not happening, is it? I mean, remember last time, Evan, it was a quick bounce back. And so that's when this shutdown began again because of the Delta strain, the assumption was that, well, we'll just bounce back again. But the longer this drags on, and it looks like New South Wales is going to face some kind of lockdown until the end of the year, then talk of recession is just going to become more heated, right? And much more possible.
Look, so when we talk about recession, it's 2 quarters of negative growth. So we've got to see that for a technical recession to happen. So it would mean that October, November, December, and you're right to point out that New South Wales is now looking a little bit more sticky. The question, obviously, that you know better than I do with regards to how this is operating with New South Wales is the vaccination rates and what happens at 50, 70 and 80% of the vaccination rates in New South Wales. There is still signs that that bounce back that we have seen after every lockdown that has happened since the end of the second Victorian lockdown last year, that confidence returns rapidly, that normal activity, inverted commas, in terms of what normal activity is in the post-COVID world, comes back quite quickly. The question that you're probably asking is how much have we lost in that interim? How many of the sort of retail business, discretionary businesses, as we refer to them, have gone by the wayside? Is the confidence that we were starting to see in the tourism industry completely shot, or will that bounce back the same amount? The advantage that tourism industry has is that Christmas always has a bounce. There is always that seasonal movement of people because people will use tourism to actually go and see their families across the country where they can. So there is that suggestion that it might not. What they are saying, though, is that the drop in the third quarter will be harder and stronger than what was forecasted. Some people believing that we could actually see a decline as much as around about 4.5% to even 7% in the third quarter, and then a bounce back in the fourth. So it may be that we actually don't technically have a recession, but it certainly feels like it. And it is different because, as you pointed out, the Delta strain is much more contagious. The ability to go to COVID zero, which is obviously what the Premiers continue to believe is the right option, is much, much harder now. And Victoria, I think, is going to show you that today with regards to what the numbers are likely to be. Despite being in lockdown now for over 4 and a bit weeks, they cannot get the numbers back into single digits or even close to zero.
Well, according to the Herald Sun this morning, they're looking at 40 cases today. That's going to be the biggest jump since last year, the second wave. All linked, though. That's the positive news, but still might come as a shock. Evan, good to see you. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Pete.